Hello my crochet friends, this is Sarah from Ned and Mimi and welcome to part 2 of the Dream Catcher Cardigan video series. So in part 1 we finished our centre square, which creates this gorgeous motif at the back of the cardigan, and now in part 2 we are ready to turn that square into a rectangle. Before we start, be sure that you have your crochet pattern to hand, and if you don't already have it, then you can find it for free on my website nedandmimi.com, and you also have the option to purchase the print friendly PDF version, and you can find all of those links below. So now without further ado, let us dive into part 2 of this pattern. Okay, so I have finished my center square. Now, depending on the size that you are making, you may have a different number of double crochet rows here than me, and that is absolutely fine. Just follow the pattern for whatever size you are doing. So now we are ready to work on turning our square into a rectangle, but there are just a few little things that we need to do first. So I'm just going to pop my hook out here for a second, and I am going to rotate my square around so that it looks like a diamond, and I am going to make sure that I am looking at it with my starting point down here at the bottom. So we're going to begin working down here. We're going to extend the width of our diamond here on the right hand side, and that's just going to make the cardigan a little bit wider. Then we're going to fill in an imaginary triangle here on the top right corner, and then do the exact same on the bottom, and then repeat for the other side. Now, the only other thing you need to know before you get started on this section is that you need to be looking at the back of the last row that you just worked. So right now I am looking at the right side of the last row that I worked, so I know that I need to flip it over. So I'll just flip that around, and now I'm good to go. So I am going to just insert my hook in here. Let's rotate around to get into a better starting position. And away I go. Now, in my center, in my corner here, I have 3 chains. So 1, 2, 3. And I just need to slip stitch into the center of those 3 chains. So I think here 1 slip stitch should do it. So there I go, and now I'm ready to start. So I will chain 3. Now this chain 3 does not count as a stitch, and I'm going to double crochet into that chain space. So that double crochet is the first stitch of the row, and let me just mark that with a marker just to make our lives a little bit easier later on. And now all I need to do is double crochet all along this edge, work this first corner as normal, then double crochet all the way around to the opposite corner, and then I'm going to turn. So I am not going to continue on working in rounds, we're going to turn at this corner. So I will go ahead and do that now, and I will see you over at the opposite edge very, very soon. Okay, so I am just at the opposite corner to where I started. So let's just have a quick look here. So we started down on this edge, we worked this corner as normal, and now we're at the opposite side. So to finish off this row, I am going to work a double crochet 2 together. So I'm going to work the first leg into this chain 3 space, and then I am going to work the second leg into that center chain, so the one right in the middle of the corner. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we will yarn over, insert our hook into the chain space, yarn over and pull through our first 2 loops. Then I'm going to yarn over again, insert my hook through that middle chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. And I'm just going to finish by yarning over and pulling through. And if we just lay this out flat here, we can just see that we're starting to straighten that edge there. So it mightn't look like it at the moment, but I promise by the time we're done, it will be really obvious. Now, before I continue on with the second row here, I'm just going to pop a marker in here because it's just going to let us know where we need to start when we want to extend the width on the opposite side. So that's just a little bit handy for later. Okay, so let us go straight on to the next row. So we'll just turn our work as normal, and now I'm going to chain 3 to start again, and this chain 3 again does not count as a stitch. So I am going to work a double crochet 3 together now in the first 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so it's like the double crochet 2 together, but we're just working over 3 stitches and we end up with 4 loops on our hook. So we'll just yarn over and pull through. Now, sometimes when you have a double crochet 3 together like this, you might have a chain 2 at the start. But in this case, I decided to do a chain 3. So even though it is taking up a little bit of extra space, it is going to give us a little bit more stretch along the edge of the rectangle, and that is going to be important for the fit so that the cardigan isn't too tight around the body. So you might feel like it looks a little bit bulky, but we are going to be working a border and we are going to be working the trim all around the body, so you won't even be able to see this extra stitch. So it's just there really to give us a bit more stretch. So all I'm going to do now is to continue to work all along the edge back to the start of my row, and then we're going to finish with a double crochet 3 together there. So I will fly along now and complete this row, and then I'll just stop to show you the very last stitch. Okay, so here I am almost back to the start of my row. So I have just 2 stitches left here before my marked stitch. So I'm going to pop out the marker and I'm going to work another double crochet 3 together to finish off this row. So we'll work 3 legs of this stitch, 1 into each of the next 3 stitches. So just remembering that that chain 3 at the start doesn't count as a stitch. So now I'll yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and that's the stitch done. Okay, so it's starting to happen, isn't it? You can see we're starting to get a flatter edge here. Now, depending on the size that you're making, you are going to need to repeat that row 2 a number of times. So do check the pattern for that. I need to repeat it once more for the size that I am making. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then I will show you how we are going to work our first corner of our rectangle. So away I go. All right, so I just wanted to stop here before I finish row 3 just to show you again how we're going to finish off. So remember, this chain 3 does not count as a stitch, so we're ignoring that. And now we have 3 double crochets left. So I'm just going to work 1 more double crochet 3 together into those. Okay, so let's just spread everything out a little bit here. Okay, so this edge is starting to even out, and if we have a look along here, you can see that what we're doing basically is adding width to this side, but we're not adding any more length. So we're not going up this way like we normally would if we were working the square, we're just extending the width, and the exact same down here. Now, just one last thing before I get on to the next section. Sometimes I get questions about why when we repeat that row 2, that double crochet row there, our stitch count is not changing. And the reason is at the start of the row there is a decrease, so with our double crochet 3 together, and at the end of the row there's also a decrease with our double crochet 3 together. So that's effectively taking 4 stitches off the count. However, if you have a look at the center of the row, we are increasing, so we're adding stitches there. So that's why the stitch count stays the same for these extend width rows. So our next step is going to be to take this imaginary triangle here and fill that in. So we're effectively filling in the first corner of our rectangle. Now, depending on the size that you are making, you might have finished the previous row at the top, as I have done here, in which case your first corner is going to be the top right corner. Or you might have finished down at the bottom of your work, and if this is the case for you, then your first corner is going to be the bottom right corner. But either way, just continue on working the next row from wherever you are. And if it is still a little bit confusing, then don't worry. I think once we have done this first corner, things will become a lot clearer. So we're going to begin working the next row exactly as we did for the previous one, except when we get to this corner here, we're going to stop and turn. So we're not going around this corner anymore. We are going to turn back. Okay, so away I go. Now, as always, I'm going to chain 3 to start, turn my work, and then I will begin this row again with double crochet 3 together. And now I'm just going to keep double crocheting all the way along until I get to the next corner. So just this first corner here. So I'm just working along one edge. So I will fly along and do that now, and I'll see you back here very shortly. Okay, so here we are at the corner. Now, if you remember what we did when we finished the first row of the extend width section, we did a double crochet 2 together into the corner. So we worked the first leg into the chain space and then the second leg into that center chain. So we're just going to do the exact same thing here. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook into the space, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over again, insert our hook into that center chain, so right in there, and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and now just yarn over and pull all the way through. So now we're ready to turn and keep working the rest of the corner. However, before I do that, let me just grab my stitch marker again, and I'm just going to mark this corner. So once we are finished working this side, we are going to start the next section for the opposite side at this marker. So that's why I am keeping that there. So let us move right along now to the next row. So for the rest of this corner, we're going to be decreasing our stitches every row. So we're going to be taking 4 stitches off the count, and we're going to be doing that with our double crochet 3 togethers at the start and end of every row. So we'll begin as always with our chain 3, turn our work, double crochet 3 together, and then double crochet until we come to the start of the row. So if I can stretch it out a little bit, just still working that edge but decreasing all the time. And at the end of the row, we are going to work another double crochet 3 together. So I'm just going to keep going with that. Once we have this row done, we're basically going to be repeating it until the corner is completely closed up, and then we'll be ready to go into the second corner. Okay, so I've just finished that row, and before I continue, I wanted to pause for a second. And I think now it should be becoming a little bit more clear about what we are doing. So we're basically just going to keep repeating that row 2 of the corner, and each time the row is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter until eventually we end up here with just 3 stitches left, and we are going to work one final double crochet 3 together there. So I will go ahead and finish off that corner now, and once we're done, we're going to be moving our attention down to this corner, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to be starting over here with this marked stitch and just closing up the corner in exactly the same way. So I'm going to keep going. I will finish this corner and I'll see you back here very, very soon. Okay, so I have finished that first corner, and I find these corners very satisfying actually, because the rows get shorter and shorter as you go along, so I feel like I get it finished very, very quickly. So now what we need to do is get on to the next corner, and we're going to go back here to this yellow marker. So this is the corner that we marked at the end of row 1 of the first corner. So what I can do now is just fasten off that corner. So just snip there and just pull all the way through. Now, if you remember at the start of corner 1, we had turned our work and we were looking at the back of the last row of the extend width section. So this means that for corner 2, we need to flip our work around so that we are looking at the back of that same row. So I'm just going to grab my yarn and I'm going to join it in here to this corner. So let me pop out the stitch marker. And I am going to join it into that center chain. So if you remember this double crochet 2 together, we work the second leg that into that middle chain there of the corner. So we're just going to join in there again. So I just pop in my hook in there, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I'm going to chain 3 to start again, like so. Then I'm going to work a double crochet into that chain space, and as with the previous section, that chain 3 does not count as a stitch, and that double crochet is going to be the first stitch of the row. So if you want to use your marker here, please do, just to avoid any confusion. So I love stitch markers. If I'm ever not sure about where my stitch needs to go, I will mark it out. So now all I need to do is pretty much repeat exactly what I did for the first corner. I'm going to work all along this edge until I get over to this section, and then I'm going to end with a double crochet 3 together. Then I'm going to turn and just keep repeating that until we have closed up this second corner. So let's get started. So I'm going to start just by double crocheting all the way along. So I don't need to do the double crochet 3 together here yet, because we're starting in the corner space. So when we're starting in the corner, we'll start with the chain 3 and the double crochet into that space, and then I'll be working my double crochet 3 together at the end of the row. So hopefully that isn't too confusing. It's all laid out in the pattern, and I think when you see the pattern and the video together, it does become a lot clearer. So let me just fly along now and get to the end of this row. So now we just need to keep repeating exactly what we did for the first corner. So we're going to have a double crochet 3 together at the start of our row, double crochet all along, double crochet 3 together at the end of the row, and so on until this corner is closed up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and once we're done, we'll have one half of the rectangle completely filled in, and then we will get on with doing the exact same on the other side. Okay, so I have finished half of my rectangle. Now it's a little bit tricky to fit it all into the shot here, but let's just do a quick recap of what we've done. So we started down here in this bottom corner, and you can tell where you started because you'll have the chain 3. So then we worked some rows to increase the width. So we worked up along here, all the way to this corner, back down, and then back up again. Then we started working our corners. So we did this top corner first, just over and back, decreasing the start and end of each row until we got to the top point. And then we did the exact same for this corner. So starting over here and then working back and forth until we finished. So now all we need to do is repeat the exact same steps as we did on the right hand side for the left hand side. So for this next section, we're going to be starting up at this corner here, and again, it doesn't matter if you're looking at the back or the front of this center square. The important thing is that you are looking at the back of this row here. So you're going to be starting at this top corner and then working along here, along this edge, down to this next corner, and just repeating the same steps. So we'll extend the width on the left, then we will add in this bottom corner, and then finally we'll work the top left corner And that's going to be it. So I will just show you how to get started with this section, and from that point on you're just going to be repeating exactly what you did for the right. So I won't go through all of that, but you can just follow along with the pattern, or you can go back and watch the videos for what I did here on the right. Now, if you remember, when you worked that very first row, when you were extending the width on the right, we ended that row with a double crochet, 2 together, and the second leg of that double crochet was worked into this middle chain here of our corner. So that's exactly where I'm going to join in my yarn now, right into that middle chain. So we'll just yarn over and draw our yarn through, and that's it, we're joined in. So now I'm going to begin with a chain 3, which does not count as a stitch, so exactly as we did on the previous section, and then we'll work a double crochet into that chain space. And now all I need to do is just continue working my double crochets all the way to the corner on the opposite edge. So starting at the top, we're going to continue on to the bottom, and when we get to that bottom corner, all we need to do is work our double crochet, 2 together, exactly the same as we did at the end of this row here. So that's it. All you need to do is follow along with the pattern, repeat everything that we did on the right hand side, and at the end of all those sections your rectangle will be complete. Okay, so here I have my rectangle finished. Now at this stage, if you find that your work is not laying completely flat, or if there are any areas that are a little bit uneven or any lumps or bumps, you can block your rectangle at this stage, and that should iron out any little issues or any areas where your tension might have been a little bit different and help to straighten up those edges too. So once that's done, we just have our finishing steps left to complete, and they are creating our armholes, sleeves, and finally the ribbing and collar around the body opening. And we will cover all of that in part 3 of this video series. So once your rectangle is done, be sure to come back and we will add all of those finishing touches. And of course, in the meantime, if you do have a second to like this video and subscribe, that would be great. Okay, so I will see you soon for part 3, and until then, happy crocheting and take care.